Supergod, create Civilization 0. Kesha is stunned. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 276. A chance. After the miracle doctor diagnosed Lu Xuan, he frowned. His injuries are too severe, and it will take time and special treatment to restore his memory. In the following days, Liang Bing and Xiao took good care of Lu Xuan and treated him according to the miracle doctor's method. One day, they encountered a ferocious beast in the mountains. The beast pounced on them with its fangs and claws. Xiao and Liang Bing fought hard, but the beast was too strong. At the critical moment, Lu Xuan seemed to have a surge of power in his body. He picked up a stone and smashed it at the beast. The beast was enraged and turned to attack Lu Xuan. Lu Xuan was not afraid and fought a desperate battle with the beast. In the fierce battle, Xuan's head was hit. When he woke up again, his eyes gradually became clear. Wanna, Xiao, it seems that I remembered something, Lu Xuan said. Liang Bing and Xiao cried with joy. Although Lu Xuan's memory began to recover, there were still many gaps. However, this did not affect their determination to move forward. One day, when they passed by a small village, they heard that the village had recently been invaded by a group of bandits, and the villagers were miserable. These bandits are really hateful. We have to help them, Liang Bing said angrily. Lu Xuan nodded and said, well, we can't let the villagers live in fear all the time. Xiao, you also agreed. Then let's plan well how to catch this group of bandits in one fell swoop. After some investigation, they learned that the bandits' lair was located on a nearby mountain and was well defended. At night, Lu Xuan, Liang Bing and Xiao quietly headed towards the bandits' lair. When they arrived at the foot of the mountain, Lu Xuan rushed up first. He was agile, and like an agile leopard, be careful of traps, Liang Bing reminded. Lu Xuan rolled over and avoided the hidden spikes on the ground. They continued to move forward and soon encountered a patrol of bandits. Who are you? The bandits shouted. Without saying a word, Lu Xuan flew up and swung the long sword in his hand, instantly killing two bandits. Xiao was not to be outdone and started a fierce fight with other bandits. Liang Bing used the power of nature to provide them with cover and support. Kill, Lu Xuan roared, and the sword was as powerful as a rainbow, and the bandits fell one after another. They killed all the way to the bandits' nest. Listen, people inside, you have been surrounded. Surrender quickly, Xiao shouted loudly. However, the bandits did not intend to surrender, but rushed out of the nest and started a final life and death fight with them. Lu Xuan rushed into the crowd, slashing left and right, and every sword was deadly. His movements were swift and sharp, making it impossible for the bandits to resist. A bandit leader swung a big knife at Lu Xuan. Lu Xuan dodged it sideways and stabbed his arm with a backhanded sword. Ah! The bandit leader screamed. Xiao also fought hard with several bandits, and his sword flashed coldly in the moonlight. Liang Bing manipulated the vines to trip some bandits, and Lu Xuan and Xiao created opportunities. Die! Lu Xuan shouted and pierced a bandit's chest with a sword. After a fierce battle, the bandits were finally subdued by them. Thank you, heroes. The villagers came one after another and were grateful to them. Don't be polite, this is what we should do, Lu Xuan said. After solving the problem of the bandits, they set off on their journey. Soon, they came to a town. In the town, they saw a bully bullying an old man who was performing. Chapter 277. A huge conspiracy. However, by chance, Lu Xuan's words caused a great uproar in the martial arts world. In a lively market, people were discussing the legends of the star gods. Some people worshipped the power of the star gods, while others questioned their behavior. When Lu Xuan heard these discussions, he couldn't help but feel a sense of emotion. Humph, those so-called star gods are just like this. Lu Xuan's voice was not loud, but it was clearly heard by the people around him. Everyone was in an uproar and looked at Lu Xuan. You kid, how dare you comment on the star gods like this? It's really disrespectful, an old man shouted angrily. Lu Xuan showed no fear and raised his head and said, Lu Xuan, walk upright, sit upright, and speak my mind. Although those star gods have powerful powers, their actions may not be just. Lin Xuan gently pulled the corner of Lu Xuan's clothes, signaling him not to be too impulsive. But Lu Xuan continued, take the sun god for example. His light is so bright that it seems to shine on everything, but his light is sometimes too hot and can bring disasters. He waved his arms with an excited look. And the moon god, cold and aloof, can bring a trace of tranquility in the darkness, but isn't her indifference a kind of alienation? Lu looked firmly at the questioning eyes of the crowd. At this time, a young warrior stood up. Lu Xuan, don't talk nonsense. How can you comment on the power of the star gods? Lu Xuan sneered. Power is not the standard for measuring everything. The star gods are high above, but they may not really understand the sufferings of the world. Seeing the tense situation, Xiao Yu hurriedly said, everyone, brother Lu Xuan was just feeling emotional for a moment, and he didn't mean to offend you. However, Lu Xuan said loudly, no, I just want to say what I think. The god of war is warlike by nature, and brings more killing and destruction. Everyone was shocked by Lu Xuan's words, and fell silent. Lu Xuan took a deep breath and continued, and the god of love, the so-called power of love, is sometimes just an illusory bubble, which makes people fall into endless confusion. At this time, some people in the crowd began to whisper, although Lu Xuan is bold, it is not completely unreasonable. When Lu Xuan heard these voices, he became more determined. I don't want to deny the existence of the star god, but I hope everyone can look at their power more soberly, instead of blindly worshipping them. Just then, a mysterious old man appeared, and he looked at Lu Xuan with deep eyes. Young man, you have such insights, and your courage is commendable, but the world of the star god is not as simple as you think. Lu Xuan clasped his fists and saluted. Senior, I'm not ignorant of the depth of the matter, but I think that everything in the world should be viewed objectively. The old man nodded slightly. Perhaps your remarks will attract the attention of the star god. You should be prepared. Lu Xuan said frankly. Lu Xuan, act with a clear conscience and fear no consequences. After leaving the market, Lin Xuan said worriedly, sir, what you said today may cause trouble. Lu Xuan smiled slightly. Wana, I just said what I really think in my heart. If I dare not speak because of fear, that is cowardice. Xiao, you also said, brother Lu, no matter what, I will support you. Soon, the news that Lu Xuan had made a sharp comment on the star god spread throughout the martial arts world. Chapter 278 The Key to the Conspiracy. Lu Xuan and the other two continued to search for the truth in the martial arts world, and every step they took was full of unknowns and dangers. After many days of investigation, they found some key clues, all of which pointed to the dangerous place they had escaped from. It seems that we have to go back to that place. Lu Xuan frowned and said. Lin Xuan looked worried. Sir, it's too dangerous there. Do we really have to go back? Lu Xuan's eyes were firm. In order to uncover the conspiracy, even if there is a dragon's den and a tiger's lair ahead, we must go through it. Xiao, you nodded. Brother Lu is right. We can't retreat. So they embarked on the journey back to the dangerous place. Along the way, Lu Xuan was in a very heavy mood. He kept thinking about his previous experience in the dangerous place and secretly planned a response strategy in his heart. This time when I go back, I must find out everything. Lu Xuan secretly made up his mind. 21. When they approached the dangerous place again, the atmosphere around them became more and more gloomy and terrifying. Everyone, be careful, there is a sense of weirdness. Lu Xuan reminded. Lin Xuan and Xiao Yu followed closely behind him, observing the surroundings vigilantly. Entering the dangerous area, Lu Xuan moved forward cautiously, taking every step with extreme caution. Suddenly, a gust of cold wind blew, and there were bursts of strange noises. What's that sound? Lin Xuan asked nervously. Lu Xuan stopped and listened. Oh no, there may be an ambush. Before he finished speaking, a group of black shadows rushed out from all directions and rushed towards them. Lu Xuan drew his sword instantly, and the sword body flashed cold light in the dark. Just in time, Lu Xuan shouted and rushed towards the black shadow. His sword skills were extremely sharp, and every sword had the power to break the wind. Swish, Lu Xuan the sword passed, and a black shadow fell down with a cry. Xiao Yu was not to be outdone, and he displayed his superb sword skills. To fight with the enemy. Lin Wana concentrated on controlling the power of nature to provide them with cover. Wanna protect yourself, Lu Xuan shouted. Lin Wana responded, don't worry, sir, I won't hold you back. Lu Xuan's figure was like lightning, shuttling through the black shadows, and just now he was fatal. Die, Lu Xuan roared, and another enemy fell under his sword. After a fierce battle, the black shadows gradually decreased. Finally solved, Zhao. You said with a heavy breath. Lu Xuan did not dare to let down his guard. This is just the beginning. Be careful, there are more powerful enemies. They continued to go deeper into the dangerous place and came to a huge cave. This should be the key, Lu Xuan said. The three walked into the cave, which was filled with a pungent smell. Be careful of your feet, Lin Wana suddenly shouted. Lu Xuan looked down and saw that the ground was full of traps. He jumped up and avoided the trap. It was a close call. Lu Xuan was still in shock. Deep in the cave, there was a low roar. What's that sound? Zhao Yu clenched the sword in his hand. Lu Xuan looked ahead vigilantly. No matter what it is, we have to face it. Suddenly, a huge monster appeared in front of them. This is Lin Wana was stunned. The monster pounced on them with its fangs and claws. Lu Xuan did not retreat and faced the monster. Chapter 279, The Sound of Clanging. Lu Xuan approached the rune array cautiously. We must find out this time, Lu Xuan said. Just as he was about to study the rune array carefully, a beam of light suddenly shot out from the rune array. Be careful, Zhao Yu shouted. Lu Xuan quickly retreated, and after the light disappeared, a mysterious figure appeared in front of them. You can actually find this place, the mysterious figure said. Lu Xuan looked at him vigilantly. Who are you? The mysterious figure sneered. It doesn't matter who I am. What matters is that you shouldn't come here, Lu Xuan said. We come for the truth. Don't try to stop us. The mysterious figure laughed. The truth? You can't afford the price of the truth. After that, he attacked Lu Xuan. Lu Xuan raised his sword to resist, and the two sides launched a fierce battle. Lu Xuan's sword and the mysterious figure's weapon kept colliding, emitting dazzling sparks. Watch it, Lu Xuan shouted, and the sword became more and more fierce. The mysterious figure gradually fell into a disadvantage. I didn't expect you to have two tricks, the mysterious figure said. Lu Xuan took advantage of the situation and chased, not giving the other party a chance to breathe. Lin Wana and Zhao Yu cheered for Lu Xuan on the side. Finally, Lu Xuan found the floor of the mysterious figure and hit him with a sword. The mysterious figure fell to the ground and disappeared in a wisp of black smoke. Lu Xuan breathed a sigh of relief and began to study the rune array. After some efforts, they finally uncovered the secret of the rune array and gradually approached the core of the conspiracy. So, that's it, Lu Xuan said. Sir, what should we do next? Lin Wana asked. Lu Xuan's eyes were firm. We must make the truth public and let the mastermind behind the scenes receive the punishment they deserve. Lu Xuan, Lin Wana and Zhao Yu left the dangerous place with the truth they had uncovered, but before they could breathe a sigh of relief, they found themselves surrounded. It's those people from the mysterious organization, Zhao Yu said solemnly. Lu Xuan clenched the sword in his hand and glanced around with cold eyes. It seems that a fierce battle is inevitable. The enemy slowly approached, led by a tall man with a ferocious face. Lu Xuan, today is your death, the man said viciously. Lu Xuan sneered. Then give it a try. Chapter 280 Exhausted. The battle started again. Lu Xuan's sword kept colliding with the enemy's weapons, making clanging sounds. His movements were agile and his sword moves were fierce, but the enemy was not a pushover and resolved his attacks again and again. Lin Wana's natural power played an important role in this battle. She controlled the surrounding trees and stones to attack the enemy. Zhao Yu fought with several enemies in close combat. His boxing was fierce and powerful, and each punch was accompanied by a whirring sound. Zhao Yu punched an enemy in the chest and repelled him. Lu Xuan saw the right time and stabbed the enemy's vital point with a sword point, but the enemies were getting more and more, and they gradually fell into trouble. Fight! Lu Xuan roared and used his strongest sword moves. His sword shone brightly, and the sword shadows were like weaving instantly killing several enemies. The enemy was shocked by his momentum and panicked for a while. Lu Xuan and the other two took the opportunity to break through the enemy's encirclement and continued to flee. 730 along the way, they went through hardships and fought one battle after another with the enemy. In one battle, Lu Xuan was hit by an enemy's hidden weapon and fell to the ground. Young Master, Lin Wana exclaimed. Zhao Yu quickly stood in front of Lu Xuan and fought a desperate battle with the enemy. Lu Xuan endured the pain, stood up, and joined the battle again. I won't fall, Lu Xuan shouted loudly, and his sword became more fierce. After a hard battle, they finally got rid of the enemy's pursuit, finally escaped. Lin Wana collapsed to the ground with exhaustion. Lu Xuan and Zhao Yu also gasped heavily. But we can't let our guard down yet. The enemy won't let us go easily, Lu Xuan said. They continued to move forward, looking for a safe place. In a valley, they found an abandoned temple. Let's take a rest here, Lu Xuan said. The three walked into the temple, but found that there was a mystery hidden inside. Be careful. Lu Xuan had just finished speaking when many traps suddenly appeared around them. Arrows, darts and other hidden weapons shot at them. Chapter 281. Gaining the upper hand. Zhao Yu also tried his best. He punched an enemy in the chest, causing him to spit blood. Lin Wana concentrated her mind and manipulated the power of nature to form a powerful barrier, which bought them some breathing time. But the enemies continued to pour in, and Lu Xuan and the other two were exhausted. In this desperate situation, Lu Xuan suddenly felt a mysterious power surging in his body. This is Lu Xuan was shocked, and then he realized that this was the potential he had been hiding that was stimulated. He shouted loudly, and a dazzling light emanated from his sword. Lu Xuan waved the radiant sword as if he was in an empty space. The enemies were shocked by this powerful force and retreated one after another. Now, rush out, Lu Xuan shouted. Lin Wana and Zhao Yu followed closely behind him, and the three of them rushed all the way and finally broke through the enemy's encirclement. They did not dare to stop and continued to run desperately until they came to a cliff. There is no way, Zhao Yu said. Lu Xuan looked at the enemy chasing behind him, and a trace of determination flashed in his eyes. In that case, let's fight them, Lu Xuan said. The enemy gradually approached, and Lu Xuan and the other two fought desperately. Lu Xuan's sword shone brighter, and every move he made was full of unstoppable momentum. Lin Wana's natural power was also exerted to the limit, and the surrounding stones and trees became their weapons. Zhao Yu, regardless of the pain, fought a desperate battle with the enemy. In the fierce battle, Lu Xuan found the location of the enemy leader. Now, Lu Xuan's figure flashed and rushed towards the leader. The leader was shocked and quickly waved his sword to resist. Lu Xuan's sword and the leader's sword intersected with a loud noise. Lu Xuan gritted his teeth and swung hard to knock the leader's sword off. Then, a sword pierced the leader's chest. The leader is dead. Seeing this, the enemy was immediately confused. Lu Xuan took the opportunity to lead Lin Wana and Zhao Yu to launch a counterattack, and the enemies were defeated one after another. We won, Lin Wana shouted excitedly. Lu Xuan and the other two collapsed to the ground exhausted, but they had a triumphant smile on their faces. This time we were in danger of death, Zhao Yu said. Lu Xuan looked into the distance and said, but as long as we don't give up, we will definitely overcome the difficulties. After a short rest, they continued to move forward. Soon, they came to a small town. The people in the town saw their embarrassed appearance and cast curious eyes. Let's find a place to rest first, Lu Xuan said. They found an inn and just sat down when they heard a noise outside. Lu Xuan went out and saw that it turned out that a few thugs were bullying an old man selling vegetables. Stop, Lu Xuan shouted. The thugs turned their heads and saw Lu Xuan and said disdainfully, who do you think you are? How dare you meddle in our affairs? A trace of anger flashed in Lu Xuan's eyes. I will take care of it today. Chapter 282. Important mission. The village chief felt pain and took a few steps back. Village chief, his men exclaimed. Lu Xuan said, do you want to fight again? The village chief gritted his teeth and said viciously, I will pay back the humiliation today double. After that, the village chief waved his hand to stop the attack. Let them go. Lu Xuan and the other two left the mountain village cautiously and continued to move forward. Along the way, Lin Huan said worriedly, "Sir, the village chief may not give up. We have to be careful of his revenge." Lu Xuan nodded. "It's okay. We will stop the enemy and cover the water with earth." Zhao, you also said, Brother Lu is right. We are not easy to mess with. However, what they didn't know was that a bigger crisis was waiting for them ahead. Soon, they came to the foot of a steep mountain. The mountain was towering into the clouds, surrounded by clouds and mist, revealing a mysterious and dangerous atmosphere. "This mountain looks unusual. We have to be careful." Lu Xuan reminded. The three began to climb the mountain. The mountain road was rugged and difficult to walk on. They moved forward carefully. Suddenly, a gust of wind whistled past, and a huge figure appeared in front of them. Lu Xuan looked closely and was shocked. "Is this the legendary SS level enemy?" The figure was several feet tall, exuding a terrifying aura, like a demon descending. "How dare you, a tiny human, break into this place?" The government roared deafeningly. Lu Xuan clenched the sword in his hand and said, "No matter what kind of monster you are, we will not retreat." The powerful enemy sneered and stretched out his huge palm to slap them. Lu Xuan dodged the attack with a flash. "Everyone, be careful," he shouted. Lin Huan used her natural power to try to restrain ZHI. Trick. The powerful enemy waved his arm and dispersed Lin Huan's natural power. Zhao took the opportunity to rush forward and attack the powerful enemy's legs, but his attack was like a tickle to the powerful enemy. The powerful enemy kicked Zhao away, and Zhao fell heavily to the ground. "Zhao, you." Lu Xuan was anxious. The powerful enemy pressed forward step by step, and a trace of determination flashed in Lu Xuan's eyes. "Wana, take good care of Zhao. I will deal with him," Lu Xuan said, and flew towards the powerful enemy. His sword flashed a series of light in the air and stabbed the powerful enemy's vitals. The powerful enemy waved his hands to resist Lu Xuan's attack. Dang dang dang. The sword collided with the powerful enemy's skin, making a metallic sound. Lu Xuan felt his arm go numb, but he still gritted his teeth and continued to attack. "HMPH, you ignorant thing." The powerful enemy roared and punched Lu Xuan. Lu Xuan was hit by this punch and flew out and hit the mountain wall. Chapter 283 Mutual Cooperation. Lu Xuan could only dodge with his agility and rich combat experience. "This is not a solution," Lin Huan said. Zhao also said, "We must find a way to fight back." Lu Xuan dodged while observing the mysterious man's flaws. Finally, he found that, although the mysterious man's attack was powerful, there would be a short pause after each attack. Now, Lu Xuan seized the opportunity and stabbed the mysterious man with his sword. The mysterious man dodged sideways, but Lu Xuan's sword still scratched his arm. Not bad. The mysterious man said. Lu Xuan said, "What do you want?" The mysterious man said, "You have passed my test, and next, there is an important task for you." Lu Xuan and the other two looked at each other. The mysterious man continued, "In the depths of this continent, an evil organization is brewing a huge conspiracy. You have to stop them." 21 Lu Xuan said without hesitation, "It is my duty." The mysterious man handed Lu Xuan a jade pendant. "This is a token. Take it, and you will get some help." Lu Xuan took the jade pendant and said, "Thank you." The mysterious man disappeared. Lu Xuan and the other two headed towards the depths of the continent. Along the way, they encountered various difficulties and obstacles, but they overcame them with their tenacious will and excellent martial arts. Finally, they came to the nest of the evil organization. Be careful, there are enemies everywhere, Lu Xuan reminded. The three sneaked into the nest quietly. In the nest, they found the plan of the evil organization. They actually want to destroy the entire continent. Lin Huan said in surprise. Lu Xuan said, "We must not let them succeed." Just then, they were discovered by the evil organization. "Who? How dare you break into this place?" A fierce battle broke out again. Lu Xuan and the other two fought a desperate battle with the members of the evil organization. Lu Xuan's sword shuttled through the enemies as if it was in an empty space. Lin Huan's natural power also played a huge role, controlling the enemy's actions. Zhao was extremely brave and fought the enemy in close combat. "Kill!" Lu Xuan shouted, and another enemy fell. After a hard fight, they finally eliminated most of the enemies. There is still the last leader. Lu Xuan said. They walked towards the depths of the nest and finally found the leader of the evil organization. The leader looked at them and sneered. You want to stop me? Lu Xuan said. Today is your doomsday. The leader laughed. Then give it a try. The two sides launched an ultimate duel. Lu Xuan used all his skills to fight the leader. Lu Xuan stabbed the leader with a sword. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 284 Ancient Books. The superpower dodged and punched Lu Xuan in the chest. Lu Xuan was beaten so hard that he vomited blood, but he still stood up tenaciously. I won't let you succeed. Lu Xuan roared. Lin Wana and Zhao Yu also rejoined the battle. They cooperated with each other and tried to contain the superpower. The superpower was angered by their tenacity. He exerted a more powerful thunder and lightning force, and the air around him seemed to be ionized. Under the strong pressure, Lu Xuan and the other two gradually felt powerless. We going to lose here today, Zhao Yu said with a heavy breath. Lu Xuan's eyes were firm. Never give up until the last moment. At this moment, Lu Xuan suddenly felt a mysterious power surging in his body. This is Lu Xuan was delighted, and he found that his strength seemed to have been improved. He swung his sword again and rushed towards the superpower. This time, his sword was more powerful. The superpower looked at Lu Xuan in surprise. How could you? Lu Xuan took advantage of the superpower's surprise and stabbed his vitals with his sword like a meteor. The superpower hurriedly dodged, but was still scratched by Lu Xuan on his arm. Damn it. The superpower was angry and attacked with all his strength. Lu Xuan and the other two gritted their teeth and fought desperately. In the fierce battle, Lu Xuan found that, although the superpower's attack was powerful, it seemed to have a pattern. Everyone, pay attention to his movements, Lu Xuan shouted. Lin Wana and Zhao Yu followed Lu Xuan's instructions and cooperated with his attack. Gradually, the superpower's attack was no longer so effective, while Lu Xuan and the other two's counterattacks became more and more threatening. Impossible. The superpower began to panic. Lu Xuan seized the opportunity and stabbed the superpower's shoulder with a sword. The superpower screamed, and the power of thunder and lightning weakened immediately. Lin Wana took the opportunity to restrain him with the power of nature, and Zhao Yu rushed up to give him a heavy blow. The superpower finally fell to the ground and lost his fighting power. We succeeded. Lu Xuan and the other two sat on the ground exhaustedly, with a triumphant smile on their faces. However, before they had time to rest, another group of mysterious people appeared. How dare you hurt our master? Lu Xuan and the other two looked at these people vigilantly. Who are you? Lu Xuan asked. We are here to avenge our master, said the leader. Lu Xuan stood up and clenched the sword in his hand. Then come on. A new battle is about to begin. This group of mysterious people have displayed various strange abilities. Some can control fire, some can be invisible, and some can create illusions. Lu Xuan and the other two were immediately in trouble. Chapter 285 Lost Direction. The book records the secrets of this continent and some powerful spells. Lu Xuan and the other two were overjoyed and began to study it seriously. After learning new spells, their strength was further improved. After Lu Xuan and the other two gained powerful strength from the ruins, they continued to move forward in the world. However, news about the second SS level superpower came again, and it was said that he was planning a bigger conspiracy. Lu Xuan's face was solemn. We must find him as soon as possible and stop his plan. Lin Wana and Zhao Yu nodded in agreement, and the three of them quickened their pace. In the process of pursuit, they met a mysterious old man. The old man's eyes were deep, as if he had insight into everything. Young man, the superpower you are going to deal with is not so easy to deal with, the old man said slowly. Lu Xuan clasped his fists and saluted. Please give me some advice, senior. The old man smiled slightly. His strongest attack seems invincible, but everything has a weakness. As long as you can find it, you have a chance to defeat him. Lu Xuan thought for a moment. Thank you, senior. How can I find this weakness? The old man shook his head. You need to find it yourself. Remember, observe his attack pattern, and pay attention to the subtle changes when he performs his strongest attack. After that, the old man disappeared. Lu Xuan and the other two continued on their way, and finally found the trace of the superpower. Now, charge. Lu Xuan gave an order, and the three rushed towards the superpower. The superpower saw them and smiled disdainfully. Only 3 people came to die. After saying that, he waved his hands, and powerful lightning appeared again, striking towards Lu Xuan and the others. Lu Xuan and the other two quickly dispersed to avoid it, and Lin Wana took the opportunity to use the power of nature to try to restrain the superpower, but the superpower struggled hard and got rid of the restraints. Taste my strongest attack. The superpower roared, and a huge lightning ball instantly gathered in the sky and smashed down towards Lu Xuan and the others. Lu Xuan widened his eyes and carefully observed the superpower's movements and the changes in the lightning ball. Zhao, you, Wana, attack the left side of the lightning ball with me. Lu Xuan shouted. The 3 concentrated their strength and attacked the left side of the lightning ball. Sure enough, the power of the lightning ball seemed to have weakened a little. The superpower's face changed. How do you know? Lu Xuan smiled and said, your weakness has been discovered. The superpower was unwilling and launched the strongest attack again. This time, Lu Xuan and the others were more confident. According to what they had just discovered, they continued to attack the weakness of the lightning ball. The power of the lightning ball gradually decreased and finally dissipated in the air. The superpower gasped and showed a horrified expression. Impossible. This is impossible. Lu Xuan took advantage of the situation and pointed his sword at the superpower. Your doomsday has come. The superpower tried to resist, but at this time he was already powerless. Lu Xuan stabbed him in the chest with a sword, and the superpower fell to the ground. We succeeded. Zhao Yu shouted excitedly. Chapter 286 No Man's Land. Lu Xuan worked closely with Lin Wana and Zhao Yu, and after a fierce fight, they finally defeated the leader of the superpowers. It's finally over. Lu Xuan panted heavily, and sweat slid down his cheeks. Lin Wana and Zhao Yu were also exhausted, but their eyes were shining with the joy of victory. This time it was really dangerous. Zhao Yu sighed. Lu Xuan looked into the distance and said thoughtfully, but I always feel that there is a deeper conspiracy behind this, and we can't take it lightly. Lin Wana nodded gently. What the young master said is very true. We will be more cautious. The 3 of them took a short break and continued on their journey. Along the way, Lu Xuan had been thinking about the battle just now, secretly thinking about how to improve his strength in order to deal with more powerful enemies that might appear in the future. Soon, they came to an ancient temple. The temple was solemn and solemn, exuding a mysterious atmosphere. This temple seems a little unusual. Lu Xuan's heart moved. They walked into the temple and saw a monk meditating with his eyes closed. Lu Xuan stepped forward and said respectfully, Master, we are sorry for interrupting you. The monk slowly opened his eyes. His eyes were calm and deep. 3 donors, meeting his fate. Lu Xuan said, Master, we have experienced many battles in the martial arts world, and we feel that our strength is insufficient. I wonder if you can give us some advice. The monk smiled slightly. Everything in the world has its own law, and the place where the heart returns is the source of the law. This is the law of returning to the heart. Lu Xuan asked doubtfully, the law of returning to the heart? Please tell me clearly, Master. The monk said, if the heart is not stable, no matter how strong the power is, it is difficult to exert the extreme. You need to abandon distracting thoughts and return to your original heart to see the true meaning of all things. Lu Xuan nodded thoughtfully. Lin Wana asked, Master, how can we achieve homecoming? The monk replied, meditate quietly and feel the inner peace and strength. Stay calm in the battle, and don't be disturbed by the outside world. Lu Xuan and the other 2 decided to stay in the temple for a few days to practice the method of homecoming. In the courtyard of the temple, Lu Xuan sat cross-legged and tried to calm his mind. However, his thoughts always drifted to the past battles involuntarily, and he was restless. Why am I so impetuous? Lu Xuan was secretly annoyed. At this time, Lin Wana came over and whispered, Sir, don't worry, take your time. Lu Xuan took a deep breath and readjusted his mentality. After several days of hard work, Lu Xuan gradually felt a trace of peace in his heart. So, that's it. Only when the mind is calm can we better control the power. Lu Xuan had some understanding in his heart. Zhao Yu also said on the side, Brother Lu, I also feel that I have made some progress. Just as they were about to leave the temple, there was a sudden noise outside the temple. Not good, there may be something wrong. Lu Xuan said. They walked out of the temple and saw a group of thugs bullying the people. Stop it. Lu Xuan shouted angrily. The thugs turned around and saw Lu Xuan and the other two and laughed. Here come a few more people who don't know how to live or die. Chapter 287. On the verge of breaking out. Lu Xuan led Lin Wana and Zhao Yu and decided to eradicate this organization. Facing the many masters of the evil organization, Lu Xuan had no fear in his heart. Today is your doomsday. Lu Xuan said loudly. He displayed powerful sword moves combined with the method of returning to the heart and was unstoppable in the enemy's formation. Lin Wana and Zhao Yu also fought bravely. After a fierce battle, the evil organization was completely eliminated. The reputation of Lu Xuan and the other two became more and more famous in the world. However, they did not become proud and complacent. We still have to continue to practice and protect the peace of the world, Lu Xuan said. During an adventure, they met a hermit master. The master saw Lu Xuan's understanding of the 260 method of returning to the heart and decided to teach him more advanced skills. Lu Xuan learned humbly and his strength was improved again. With these skills, we are more confident to face future challenges, Lu Xuan said. Lin Wana and Zhao Yu nodded in agreement. They continued to venture into the martial arts world, solving one crisis after another with the Gixin method and their ever-increasing strength. One day, they came to a cursed village. The people in the village fell into a deep sleep and could not wake up. Lu Xuan used the Gixin method to try to find a way to break the curse. After some effort, he finally found the source of the curse. It turned out to be an evil elf at work. Lu Xuan said. They fought a fierce battle with the evil elf. During the battle, Lu Xuan always maintained his inner peace and finally successfully defeated the evil elf and lifted the curse. The people in the village woke up and were grateful to them. Lu Xuan and the other two continued to move forward. Their journey in the martial arts world was full of challenges and unknowns, but they were fearless with the Gixin method. One night, they rested in the mountains and forests. Lu Xuan looked at the starry sky, feeling a lot of emotion in his heart. Wana, Zhao Yu, we have come all the way and experienced so much. Thanks to the Gixin method, we have remained firm, Lu Xuan said. Lin Wana smiled and said, Sir, as long as we are together, there will be no difficulties that cannot be overcome. Zhao Yu also said, yes, Brother Lu, let's continue to fight side by side. Lu Xuan and the other two became more and more famous in the martial arts world, and their deeds were praised by people. However, new challenges also came with it. They heard about a mysterious place, Longjington. It is said that there are huge secrets and treasures hidden in Longjington, but it is also full of unknown dangers. Lu Xuan looked at Lin Wana and Zhao Yu and said, this Longjington may be an opportunity for us to improve our strength. Lin Wana was a little worried. Sir, I heard that there are many dangers there, so we must be careful. Zhao Yu said proudly, what are you afraid of? With Brother Lu's method of returning to the heart, we will definitely be able to turn danger into safety. So, they set out on the road to Longjington. Along the way, they met many martial arts kings who also heard the legend of Longjington and went there. Humph, do you think you can gain something in Longjington? A burly man looked at Lu Xuan and the other two with disdain. Lu Xuan said calmly, everyone depends on their own ability. Finally, they arrived at the edge of Longjing Pond. The water in the pond was deep, and it seemed that there was endless danger hidden under the calm surface. Let's be careful, Lu Xuan reminded. As soon as they approached the edge of the pond, suddenly a powerful force sucked Lin Wana in. Chapter 288. A desolate place. Lu Xuan and the other two quickly dodged. Let's go together, Lu Xuan shouted. They used their own unique skills and started a thrilling battle with the water dragon. Lu Xuan's sword shone in the water, and each sword contained the power of the method of returning to the heart. Lin Wana controlled the power of nature and tried to restrain the water dragon's actions. Zhao Yu relied on his fierce boxing to exploit the water dragon's weakness. The water dragon roared angrily and swept its tail to repel them. Can't give up, Lu Xuan rushed up again. After a hard fight, the water dragon had many wounds on its body. Its power gradually weakened. Lu Xuan saw the right time and stabbed the water dragon's eyes with his sword. The water dragon struggled painfully and finally fell down. Finally defeated it. Zhao collapsed to the ground tiredly. Just when they thought the crisis was over, the palace began to shake violently. No, it's going to collapse here. Lu Xuan shouted. They took Liang Bing to find an exit quickly. Just before the palace collapsed, they finally escaped. This time it was a narrow escape. Liang Bing said with lingering fear. Lu Xuan looked at a mysterious treasure in his hand and said, but we also gained something. After they left Longjington, they found themselves surrounded by a group of people from the martial arts world. Hand over the treasure, said a swordsman in the lead. Lu Xuan sneered. If you have the ability, come and get it yourself. A new battle was about to break out. Lu Xuan and the other two stood back to back, ready to meet the enemy's attack. The swordsman rushed up first, and Lu Xuan waved his sword to resist. Dang. The two swords intersected, and sparks flew. Zhao and Liang Bing also fought with the enemy. Lu Xuan's sword shuttled through the crowd like a dragon, and the enemies fell one after another. Liang Bing's natural power restricted the enemy's movements. Zhao's boxing was extremely powerful, and the enemy retreated again and again. Everyone, come together, they can't hold on for long, the enemy shouted. But Lu Xuan and his two companions were not afraid, and they fought more and more bravely. Lu Xuan roared, and his sword was as powerful as a rainbow, and another enemy fell. The enemies began to be timid, and some gradually began to retreat. Don't run, the leading swordsman shouted, but it was impossible to stop them. In the end, all the enemies fled. Let's go, Lu Xuan said. They continued to move forward in the rivers and lakes, and the experience of Longjington made them more determined to protect justice. Soon, they came to a small town. The atmosphere in the town was extremely tense. It turned out that a bully appeared here and oppressed the people. We can't sit idly by, Lu Xuan said. Chapter 289 Weird Kung Fu. Lu Xuan walked into a dilapidated house and found some strange symbols and words carved on the wall. This may be the clue left by Gix insect. Lu Xuan studied it carefully. At this moment, a mysterious old man suddenly appeared. Why are you here? The old man looked sharp. Lu Xuan said respectfully, Senior, we heard the legend of Gix insect and came to explore it. The old man was silent for a moment and said, in this case, follow me. They followed the old man to a secret room. In the secret room, some books and relics of Gix insect were stored. The old man said slowly, Gix insect once declined due to a huge conspiracy. Lu Xuan was surprised. Conspiracy? I would like to hear the details. The old man sighed. Back then, Gix insect mastered a powerful skill, which aroused the covetousness of other sects. They united and framed Gix insect as an evil sect, and encircled and suppressed it. Liang Bing said angrily, these people are too despicable. The old man continued, the Gix insect fought hard, but was outnumbered, and suffered heavy losses. Countless disciples of the sect were killed and injured, and the survivors also hid their identities, and fled far away. Lu Xuan clenched his fists. Who is the mastermind behind this? The old man shook his head. It is still a mystery, but I believe that one day the truth will be revealed to the world. Zhao, you said, Senior, why are you staying here? The old man's eyes flashed with a trace of determination. I'm the last elder of Gix insect. I want to protect the inheritance of the sect and wait for the destined person to revive the glory of Gix insect. Lu Xuan said, Senior, we are willing to do our part. The old man looked at them. Okay, then I will teach you the secrets of Gix insect. In the following days, Lu Xuan and the other two followed the old man to practice diligently and gain a deep understanding of the Gix insect's techniques and history. They discovered that the Gix insect's techniques were not only a form of force, but also a spiritual practice. Only when the heart is pure can the true power of the Gix insect be brought into play. The old man taught Lu Xuan constantly reflected on himself during his practice, and his heart became more determined. Lin Wana also gradually realized the way to integrate the power of nature and the method of returning to the heart. Zhao relied on his tenacious will to break through his bottleneck. However, just when they were about to finish their studies, trouble came. A group of men in black suddenly surrounded the old site of the Gixin sect. Hand over the secret book of the Gixin sect, and I will spare your life. The leader of the men in black shouted. Lu Xuan stepped forward. Don't even think about it. The two sides launched a fierce battle. Lu Xuan's sword, with the blessing of the method of returning to the heart, became more powerful and just fatal. Lin Wana's natural power turned into a shield to protect her companions. Zhao was extremely brave and fought the enemy in close combat. But the number of men in black was large and well trained, and Lu Xuan and the other two gradually fell into trouble. We going to die here today, Zhao said, panting. Lu Xuan's eyes were firm. Never give up until the last moment. At this moment, the old man suddenly made a move. Chapter 290, Catastrophic Disaster. Everyone be careful. Lu Xuan reminded everyone loudly. The leader of the evil forces waved his hands, and black mist surged from his palms, spreading towards the disciples of Gixin sect. Lu Xuan was anxious, and he flashed and rushed to the front of the team, waving the sword in his hand, to try to cut off the strange mist. Humph, Lu Xuan, today is your doomsday. The evil leader laughed wildly. Lu Xuan glared. Don't even think about it. As long as I'm here, I will never let you succeed. His heart was extremely firm, and he secretly vowed to crack this strange technique and protect his companions and disciples. Lin Wana also reacted quickly. She formed seals with her hands, and the power of nature formed a layer of green light around her body to resist the erosion of the black mist. Zhao shouted loudly, brothers, don't be afraid, we will go together. As he said, he held a long sword and rushed towards the enemy. While resisting the mist, Lu Xuan observed the evil leader's movements, trying to find the flaws in his skills. This skill is so strange, how can I break it? Lu Xuan thought anxiously. At this moment, a disciple was accidentally shrouded by the mist. His eyes became confused, and he actually waved his sword at his companion. Not good. Lu Xuan rushed over and pulled the disciple back. Wake up. Lu Xuan shouted loudly. The disciple woke up from a dream, his face full of fear. Lu Xuan took a deep breath and said to everyone, keep your mind, don't be confused by this mist. At this time, the evil leader took advantage of the situation to launch a more fierce attack, and the black garden energy surged like a tide. Lu Xuan gritted his teeth. The light on the sword was bright. He used the unique skills of the Gixin school, and the sword shadows were heavy, competing with the mist. Wana, Zhao, let's concentrate our strength to attack his body. Lu Xuan shouted. Upon hearing this, Lin Wana and Zhao immediately rushed towards the evil leader. The evil leader sneered. Pfee, don't overestimate your own abilities. He waved his hands, and more yuan ki attacked them. Lu Xuan was anxious, and he suddenly burst out with a powerful force. The light on his sword was as dazzling as the sun, and instantly dispelled part of the fog in front of him. Now, Lu Xuan shouted loudly. Lin Wana and Zhao took the opportunity to break through the obstruction of the fog and approached the evil leader. The evil leader's face changed, and he began to deal with their attacks with all his strength. Lu Xuan did not relax either, and his sword stabbed at the evil leader like a gust of wind and rain. The evil leader roared, desperately resisting their attacks. Lu Xuan's sword and the evil leader's weapon kept colliding, making a clanging sound. Watch this, Lu Xuan shouted, and the sword suddenly changed, becoming more fierce. The evil leader was careless and was scratched on the arm by Lu Xuan. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 291, The Second Key. Lu Xuan asked anxiously, where is it? The old man pointed to a mountain in the distance. It's in that mountain, but it's full of dangers and traps. Lu Xuan said, no matter what, I have to try. Lin Wana said worriedly, young master, be careful of fraud. Lu Xuan said, no risk, no gain. They walked towards the mountain point. The mountain was indeed full of traps. Lu Xuan carefully avoided one trap after another, secretly alert in his heart point. Suddenly, a huge monster jumped out from the dark point. Lu Xuan was not afraid and faced the monster. His sword left scars on the monster. Lin Wan and Xiao Yu also assisted, and after a hard fight, they finally defeated the monster. Continuing forward, they encountered a complex puzzle point. Lu Xuan calmed down, thought carefully, and finally found the answer. Finally, they came to a secret room point. In the secret room, there was an ancient secret book point. Lu Xuan picked up the secret book and felt a strong power. Is this the core secret book of Gixin sect? Lu Xuan was excited point. At this moment, the secret room began to shake and seemed to collapse. No, hurry up, Lu Xuan shouted point. They ran out desperately point. As soon as they ran out of the secret room, the mountain collapsed point. Lu Xuan looked at the secret book in his hand and said, this harvest will definitely make Gixin sect stronger. Back to Gixin sect, Lu Xuan began to study the secret book point. After a period of practice, the strength of the disciples of Gixin sect has been greatly improved point. However, a new crisis has emerged in the world point. A mysterious organization attempted to provoke a fight between the various sects in the world, causing a chaos. Lu Xuan led the disciples of Gixin sect to run between the various sects, trying to quell the dispute. Masters, don't fall into the trap of the traitor, Lu Xuan said point, but some sects did not believe him. Chapter 292, difficult to control. After a hard fight, the shadows gradually dispersed. What are these shadows from? Xiao Yu asked, panting point. Lu Xuan frowned. I don't know, but it feels like it's related to the heart of chaos. Continuing forward, they found a mural in an ancient palace point. The mural depicts the appearance of the heart of chaos and some mysterious symbols. This may be the key to solving the mystery of the magic weapon. Lu Xuan studied the mural carefully point. At this moment, the palace began to shake violently, and a huge crack appeared on the ground. No, get out of here, Lu Xuan shouted point. The three quickly ran towards the 537 exit point. While escaping from the palace, Lu Xuan found a yellowed ancient book. This may record important information. Lu Xuan put the ancient book in his arms. After escaping from the ancient city, they began to study the ancient book point. The ancient book mentioned that the heart of chaos was sealed in a mysterious valley, and to enter the valley, 3 keys needed to be collected. It seems that our task has become more difficult, Lin Wan said point. Lu Xuan said firmly, no matter what, we must find these 3 keys. They began to look for clues to the keys in the world point. After much inquiry, they learned that the first key might be in the hands of a hermit hero point. Lu and the other 2 found the hero and explained their purpose point. The hero looked at them and said, I can give you this key, but you have to agree to one condition of mine. Lu Xuan asked, Senior, please speak point. The hero said, use the heart of chaos to benefit the people, and do not do evil point. Lu Xuan nodded solemnly. Senior, rest assured, I, Lu Xuan, will live up to your trust point. The hero handed them the first key point. Then, they learned that the second key was in the hands of an evil organization point. In order to get the key, Lu Xuan and his 3 friends bravely broke into the lair of the evil organization point. There were many masters in the organization, but Lu Xuan relied on his superb swordsmanship and the method of returning to the heart, and cooperated tacitly with Lin Wan and Xiao Yu, and finally defeated the enemy, and grabbed the second key point. There was only the last key left, but the clue pointed to a maze full of dangers. No matter how difficult it is, we have to try, Lu Xuan said point. After entering the maze, they encountered various traps and puzzles. Sometimes it was a blazing fire, sometimes it was a complex secret passage point, but Lu Xuan always remained calm and led Lin Wan and Xiao Zhu forward step by step point. Finally, in the depths of the maze, they found the last key. Chapter 293, Jealousy and Coveting. But the power of the heart of chaos is too strong and difficult to control. Brother Lu, what should we do? Xiao Yu asked point. Lu Xuan pondered for a moment. We can't rush for success. We need to slowly comprehend. Lin Wana said, maybe we can ask some senior masters for advice. So they visited masters everywhere to seek guidance. With the help of a Taoist monk, Lu Xuan gradually mastered the method of controlling the power of the Heart of Chaos. The power of the Heart of Chaos was used to treat the wounded and resist disasters. The reputation of the Gixin sect became more famous, and the world of martial arts also ushered in a period of peace and prosperity. But the good times did not last long, and a new evil force appeared in the world of martial arts. This force attempted to snatch the Heart of Chaos and dominate the world of martial arts. Lu Xuan led the disciples of the Gixin sect and launched a fierce battle with the evil forces. You bunch of villains, don't even think about getting the Heart of Chaos, Lu Xuan shouted loudly. The leader of the evil forces sneered, Lu Xuan, today is your death. The two sides fought a desperate battle. Lu Xuan used the power of Heart of Chaos to repel the attacks of the evil forces again and again. But the evil forces continued to come, as if they would never be defeated. This is not a solution, Lin Wana said anxiously. Lu Xuan gritted his teeth. We must find their leader and defeat him in one fell swoop. After searching for a while, Lu Xuan finally found the hiding place of the leader of the evil forces. He rushed over alone. Die. Lu Xuan used a powerful move. The leader of the evil forces was not to be outdone and resisted all the way. The two fought hard. Just as Lu Xuan gradually gained the upper hand, the leader of the evil forces suddenly used a sinister hidden weapon. Lu Xuan was unable to dodge and was seriously injured. Lu Xuan, Lin Wana and Zhao Yu came to support. With their help, Lu Xuan finally defeated the leader of the evil forces. It's finally over, Lu Xuan said tiredly. After this battle, the world of martial arts returned to peace again. Lu Xuan also understood that the greater the power, the greater the responsibility. He will continue to protect the world of martial arts and let peace and justice last forever. As time went by, Lu Xuan's reputation spread throughout the cultivation world. Many young practitioners came here in the hope of joining the Gixin sect. Lu Xuan tested their character and qualifications, and only accepted those who were just and had firm beliefs as disciples. In the process of teaching his disciples, Lu Xuan discovered some new insights about cultivation. He found that cultivation is not only about improving martial arts, but also about cultivating the heart. Only when the heart is strong can you truly master powerful power, Lu Xuan said to the disciples. The disciples nodded and understood with their hearts. One day, Lu Xuan received a mysterious invitation letter. The invitation letter read, the grand event of the cultivation world is about to start, and Lu Xuan is sincerely invited to participate. Lu Xuan was curious and decided to go and find out. At the event, he met masters of cultivation from all over the world. Everyone exchanged their cultivation experiences and shared the strange stories in the world. Lu Xuan also took this opportunity to meet many like-minded friends. Chapter 294, The Entrance to the Treasure. After this fierce battle, Lu Xuan and Mirren Feng's reputation in the cultivation world became more and more famous. However, what they didn't know was that a more mysterious adventure was waiting for them. One day, Lu Xuan and Mirren Feng were resting in a quiet town. While Lu Xuan was walking on the street, he accidentally met a strange old man. The old man's eyes were deep, as if he could see through everything. Young man, I think you are destined to have a strange fate, the old man suddenly said to Lu Xuan. Lu Xuan was confused, but still responded politely, old man, I don't know what you mean by this. The old man smiled slightly. You are about to have a pair of eyes that can see through yin and yang, but this is both an opportunity and a test. Lu Xuan's heart was shocked, and before he could ask in detail, the old man disappeared. Mirren Feng saw that Lu Xuan looked strange and asked the reason. Lu Xuan told him what the old man said. Brother Lu, this sounds quite mysterious. I don't know if it is a blessing or a curse, Mirren Feng said. Lu Xuan pondered for a moment. No matter what, since it has come, let's make the best of it. A few days later, Lu Xuan suddenly felt a sharp pain in his eyes during a practice. After the pain, he found that his vision had changed strangely. He could see some light and shadows and breath that ordinary people could not perceive. Is this the yin yang eyes that the old man said? Lu Xuan was secretly surprised. He began to try to use this special pair of eyes, but found that the scenes of the yin yang world were intertwined, making him feel a little confused. How can I control this? Lu Xuan was a little irritable. Mirren Feng comforted him. Brother Lu, don't worry, maybe it takes time to adapt. Lu Xuan took a deep breath and tried to calm himself down. One night, Lu Xuan and Mirren Feng stayed in a dilapidated temple. Lu Xuan was sleeping and suddenly saw a group of gloomy ghosts rushing towards him. He woke up suddenly, sweating profusely. What's wrong, Brother Lu? Mirren Feng was awakened by Lu Xuan's movement. Lu Xuan panted and said, I saw some scary ghosts. Mirren Feng frowned. Could it be that this yin yang eye made you see unclean things? Lu Xuan nodded. I'm afraid so. Since then, Lu Xuan often saw some weird scenes inadvertently, which tortured his heart. I can't be troubled by this yin yang eye. I must find a way to control it. Lu Xuan secretly made up his mind. He began to ask around about the legends and control methods of yin yang eye. During a journey, they met a Taoist priest who lived in seclusion. Lu Xuan respectfully asked the Taoist priest, Taoist priest, I don't know how to control my yin yang eye. I hope you can give me some advice. The Taoist priest looked at him and said slowly, the yin yang eyes are a natural gift. But you also need to be clear-minded. You need to look at the yin-yang world with a peaceful heart and not be swayed by fear and desire. Lu Xuan nodded thoughtfully. In the following days, Lu Xuan tried to adjust his mentality. He tried to observe those yin-yang scenes with a calm eye and no longer be frightened by them. As time went by, Lu Xuan gradually adapted to the yin-yang eyes. He found that he could see some hidden dangers and secrets through the yin-yang eyes. Once, they passed by a village, and Lu Xuan saw a layer of black yin-qi shrouded the sky above the village. This village may be haunted by evil spirits. Lu Xuan said to Mirren Feng. They decided to investigate in the village. Lu Xuan used the yin-yang eyes and found a cave hidden underground, which exuded an evil breath. Chapter 295. Not the only one. After a hard fight, they finally defeated the ghost and found the entrance to the treasure. However, there was a powerful barrier at the entrance. This barrier seems to require a special method to unlock it. Mirren Feng said. Lu Xuan used the yin yang eyes to carefully observe the structure of the barrier and found the flaw in it. He concentrated his mind, injected his internal force into the sword, and stabbed the flaw in the barrier with one sword. The barrier was broken in an instant, and they walked into the treasure room. The room was full of gold, silver, treasures and precious secret books. These are all priceless treasures. Mirren Feng said excitedly. Lu Xuan said, wealth is good, but we should use it to do meaningful things. They left the manor with the treasure, distributed part of it to the poor people, and used part of it to build temples and schools. Their good deeds were praised by people. But their actions also attracted the attention of an evil organization. This organization attempted to rob them of their treasure and the ability of yin yang eyes. After Lu Xuan and Mirren Feng 407 learned the news, they decided to take the initiative to eliminate the evil organization. They went deep into the nest of the evil organization and fought a life and death battle with the enemy. Lu Xuan relied on the ability of yin yang eyes to thrive in the dark and avoid the enemy's traps and attacks again and again. Mirren Feng was brave and fearless and confronted the enemy head on. After a fierce battle, they finally wiped out the evil organization. This time is really thrilling. Mirren Feng said. Lu Xuan smiled and said, but as long as we work together, there is no difficulty that cannot be overcome. In the journey of the rivers and lakes, Lu Xuan's yin yang eyes not only brought him challenges, but also made him gain countless growth and insights. He knew that having special abilities was not for showing off or seeking personal gain, but for protecting justice and helping others. Lu Xuan and Mirren Feng's heroic deeds in the martial arts world spread far and wide, and their reputation became more and more famous. However, by chance, they heard a mysterious legend about a spiritual vein. It is said that in a distant valley, there is a powerful spiritual vein hidden, which has endless spiritual energy and mysterious power. With the nourishment of the spiritual vein, the practitioner's skills will advance by leaps and bounds. After hearing this news, Lu Xuan and Mirren Feng were full of curiosity and desire. Brother Mirren, if we can find this spiritual vein, our cultivation will definitely be able to reach a high level. Lu Xuan said. Mirren Feng nodded and said, Brother Lu is right, but this spiritual vein must not be easily obtained. Despite this, they decided to embark on the journey to find the spiritual vein. After a hard journey, they finally came to the legendary valley. The valley was filled with thick fog, and the silence around made people feel a little uneasy. Be careful, this place is weird. Lu Xuan reminded. Mirren Feng held the sword tightly in his hand, and Lu Xuan walked forward carefully. Suddenly, a gust of wind whistled past, mixed with sharp cries. Chapter 296 Mysterious Organization. No, this is not real. Mirren Feng suddenly woke up. In the end, they overcame their inner fear and desire, and passed the third test. The power of the spirit vein gradually subsided, and the barrier disappeared. Lu Xuan and Mirren Feng were finally able to approach the spirit vein. They sat beside the spirit vein, feeling the rich spiritual energy nourishing their body and soul. This experience has given me a deeper understanding of practice. Mirren Feng said. Lu Xuan nodded and said, yes. Power is not the only thing. Inner practice is more important. However, the news of their spirit vein was leaked for some reason. Various forces in the world rushed to the valley, trying to snatch the spirit vein. Lu Xuan and Mirren Feng decided to protect the spirit vein and prevent it from falling into the hands of people with bad intentions. The one who comes is not good. We have to be prepared. Lu Xuan said. The first group to arrive was a group of greedy robbers. Hand over the spirit vein, and I will spare your life, shouted the leader of the robbers. Lu Xuan sneered, come and get it if you can. The two sides started a fierce battle. Lu Xuan and Mirren Feng easily defeated the robbers with the power they gained from the spirit vein. But then, more powerful forces followed. There were evil sects and ambitious lone rangers. Lu Xuan and Mirren Feng were caught in one bitter battle after another. This is not a solution. We must come up with a countermeasure. Mirren Feng said. Lu Xuan thought for a moment and said, we can use the terrain of the valley and the power of the spirit vein to set some traps. So, they set up many traps in the valley. When another group of enemies rushed in, they fell into the traps one after another. Lu Xuan and Mirren Feng took the opportunity to launch an attack, catching the enemy off guard. However, as the number of enemies increased, they gradually felt powerless. Are we going to lose the spiritual vein today? Mirren Feng said in despair. Lu Xuan's eyes were firm. Never give up until the last moment. Just then, a mysterious old man appeared. Young man, your courage and persistence are admirable. The old man said. Lu Xuan looked at the old man warily. Who are you? The old man smiled slightly. I'm the guardian of this spiritual vein. As the old man waved his hand, a powerful force repelled all the enemies. Spiritual veins are not for fighting, but for protection and inheritance. The old man said. Lu Xuan and Mirren Feng said respectfully, please give me some advice, senior. The old man said, you have passed the test and proved your heart. But the power of the spirit vein is too strong. If it is abused, it will bring disaster. I will seal most of the power of the spirit vein, leaving only a small part for you to practice. Lu Xuan and Mirren Feng nodded in agreement. After the old man sealed the spirit vein, he disappeared. Lu Xuan and Mirren Feng left the valley. They decided to remember this experience in their hearts, and continue to practice in the world, using their own power, to protect justice. In the following days, Lu Xuan and Mirren Feng's cultivation improved day by day. Their names became legends in the world, and were passed down by people. One day, they met a young woman on the road, who was being bullied by a group of villains. Lu Xuan and Mirren Feng immediately helped. The woman said gratefully, thank you two heroes for saving my life. Lu Xuan said, miss, you don't have to be polite. I will help when I see injustice on the road. The woman's name is Suyeo. She has a miserable life. Her parents died early, and she wandered alone in the world. Chapter 297 Chaos Crystal. Together with Mirren Feng and Suyeo, he treated the villagers day and night. After a period of hard work, the plague was finally brought under control. The villagers were grateful to them. Lu Xuan looked at the revived village with great relief. Our efforts were not in vain, said Mirren Feng. Suyeo smiled and said, I'm very happy to do these meaningful things with you. However, their good deeds attracted the attention of mysterious organization. This organization specializes in collecting various magical powers and treasures, and they have long coveted the spiritual power of Lu Xuan. The organization sent killers to try to assassinate Lu Xuan and others one night. When Lu Xuan and others were resting in the inn, the killer sneaked into the room quietly. Lu Xuan used his yin yang eyes to find the killer in time. 810. There are enemies Lu Xuan shouted. A fierce battle unfolded in the inn. Lu Xuan and Mirren Feng struggled to resist the killer's attack, while Su Yao hid aside, full of fear in her heart. Su Yao, don't be afraid. Lu Xuan shouted. At the critical moment, Lu Xuan exerted the power of the spiritual vein and the waste killer repelled. But they knew that the mysterious organization would not give up. We must find a way to deal with this mysterious organization. Mirren Feng said. Lu Xuan pondered for a moment and said, let's leave here first, and then make a long-term plan. They took Su Yao and began their escape. On the way, they met a hermit master. The master heard about their experience and decided to help them. I can teach you a formation that may be able to deal with that mysterious organization, the master said. Lu Xuan and Mirren Feng learned humbly and quickly mastered the essentials of the formation. They found the nest of the mysterious organization and prepared to fight with them. Today is your doomsday, Lu Xuan said. The members of the mysterious organization rushed out one after another. Lu Xuan and Mirren Feng set up the formation and fought a desperate battle with the enemy. Su Yao cheered them on. After a thrilling battle, Lu Xuan and his team finally defeated the mysterious organization and eliminated a major disaster for the world. We won, Su Yao said excitedly. After defeating the mysterious organization, Lu Xuan, Mirren Feng and Su Yao continued to venture into the world. However, the peaceful days did not last long, and a sudden change broke their lives. One day, when Lu Xuan was practicing, he suddenly felt a strange fluctuation in his inner world. He was startled and quickly calmed down to check. He saw that the originally stable spiritual energy in the inner world began to become disordered, and the mountains and rivers seemed to be trembling. What's going on? Lu Xuan was full of doubts. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 298. The Figure in the Crowd. Lu Xuan successfully lifted the curse of the inner world, and the three of them breathed a sigh of relief. However, before they had time to rest properly, new challenges were placed in front of them. By chance, Lu Xuan got an ancient secret book, which recorded a mysterious spell, the cloud flying technique. It is said that this technique can make people free like clouds between heaven and earth, with extremely fast speed and unpredictable changes. Lu Xuan was overjoyed and began to study this spell day and night. He was full of expectations and eager to master this magical cloud flying technique as soon as possible to improve his strength. If I can master the cloud flying technique, I will definitely be able to do more in the world, Lu Xuan thought to himself. He was immersed in practice and forgot the passage of time. With every attempt, he could feel that his understanding of the spell was gradually deepening. Mirren Feng and Su Yao protected him on the side, and looking at Lu Xuan's focused expression, they were also full of expectations. After 21 days of hard practice, Lu Xuan finally made a breakthrough. He was able to perform the initial form of the cloud leaping technique. His body was as light as clouds, and his movement speed was greatly improved. Haha, I succeeded, Lu Xuan said excitedly. Mirren Feng smiled and said, Brother Lu, this cloud leaping technique is really magical. You must use it well. Su Yao also said, Brother Lu, you are awesome. However, just when they were happy about Lu Xuan's progress, an uninvited guest suddenly visited. One morning, Lu Xuan and the other two were resting in the valley, and suddenly felt a strong breath approaching. Be careful, something is going on, Lu Xuan said vigilantly. A figure fell from the sky. This person had a cold face, and his eyes were full of arrogance. Ah, you Lu Xuan and others? The person asked coldly. Lu Xuan stepped forward. Exactly, who are you? I am Xiao Chen, a famous cold-faced swordsman in the world. I heard that you got the cloud leaping technique, so I came to ask for advice, Xiao Chen said. Lu Xuan's heart tightened. It turned out to be Master Xiao. I wonder why we have to meet in this way. Xiao Chen snorted coldly. Stop talking nonsense. Take it, as he said. He drew his sword, and the sword was sharp, and he rushed straight to Lu Xuan. Lu Xuan did not dare to neglect it, and use the cloud long technique to quickly avoid it. Humph, you can only hide? Zhao Chen mocked. Lu Xuan said, Master Zhao, why are you so aggressive? Zhao Chen ignored him and continued to attack. Seeing that there was no way to avoid it, Lu Xuan also drew his sword and started a fierce confrontation with Zhao Chen. The two swords crossed in the air, making a clanging sound. Lu Xuan relied on the flexible body movement of the cloud long technique to fight Zhao Chen. Zhao Chen was secretly surprised. This cloud long technique is really powerful. Lu Xuan, while fighting, he thought about countermeasures. This man has superb swordsmanship. We can't fight hard. We need to find his flaws at this moment. Zhao Chen revealed a tiny flaw, and Lu Xuan seized the opportunity and stabbed with a sword. Zhao Chen hurriedly returned to defend, but was scratched on the arm by Lu Xuan. Zhao Chen was angry and his swordsmanship became more fierce. Lu Xuan responded calmly, and the use of Yang Zhongshu became more and more skillful. Mirren Feng and Su Yao watched nervously on the side, and they were sweating for Lu Xuan. Brother Lu, be careful. Mirren Feng shouted. Lu Xuan replied, don't worry, I can handle it. Chapter 299, Distraction. Don't be complacent. The leader suddenly laughed wildly. A powerful force burst out from his body, knocking everyone back. Lu Xuan stabilized his body and was surprised. This force is so strong. The leader took advantage of the fact that everyone was still not recovered and prepared to escape. Want to run? That's not that easy. Lu Xuan used the cloud flying technique and chased after him. The leader turned around and launched an attack, trying to stop Lu Xuan. Lu Xuan dodged sideways and continued to chase. Finally, Lu Xuan caught up with the leader and stabbed him in the back with a sword. The leader screamed and fell to the ground. As the leader fell, the rest of the enemies also fled. Finally, solved. Lu Xuan breathed a sigh of relief. Everyone gathered around, and Mirren Feng said, Brother Lu, thanks to you this time. Lu Xuan said, everyone deserves credit. Su Yao said, I don't know why these people attacked us. Zhao Chen said, maybe there is a bigger conspiracy behind it. Lu Xuan nodded. In any case, we must be careful. After this battle, Xuan and others became more vigilant. They continued to move forward in the rivers and lakes, looking for more clues and challenges. During a journey, they came to a mysterious valley. The valley was filled with thick fog, making it difficult to see the road ahead. Everyone, be careful, there may be danger here. Lu Xuan reminded. They walked into the valley carefully and suddenly heard a sinister laugh. Who? Lu Xuan shouted. A black shadow slowly walked out of the thick fog. You are finally here. The black shadow said. Lu Xuan looked at the black shadow. Who are you? The black shadow said, I'm here to take your lives. After that, he launched an attack. Lu Xuan and others rushed to fight. The black shadow's martial arts were very strange and his moves were sinister. Lu Xuan used the cloud flying technique and fought fiercely with the black shadow. During the battle, Lu Xuan found that, although the black shadow's attack was powerful, it seemed to have a certain pattern. Found it. Lu Xuan was delighted and saw the opportunity to stab the black shadow with a sword. The black shadow was unable to dodge and was stabbed by Lu Xuan. Damn it. The black shadow was angry and increased the intensity of the attack. Lu Xuan and others were not afraid and resisted with all their strength. After a hard fight, the black shadow finally couldn't hold on and ran away. We can't let him run away. Lu Xuan said. They chased in the direction of the black shadow's escape. In the depths of the valley, they found a hidden cave. Did the black shadow hide here? Mirren Feng said. Lu Xuan nodded. Let's go in and take a look. Chapter 300, Guessing in the Heart. Good body skills. The disciple praised. Lu Xuan smiled slightly and took advantage of the opponent's distraction to launch a round of fierce attacks. In the end, Lu Xuan narrowly won. Mirren Feng and Zhao Chen also went to fight one after another, and after a fierce battle, they both won. Not bad. There is one last level. The voice of the master came. The third level is to solve a profound martial arts puzzle. Lu Xuan and others sat together and pondered. I seem to have some ideas. Zhao Chen said. After everyone's joint discussion and efforts, the puzzle was finally solved. Congratulations, you have passed the test. The master appeared and said. Lu Xuan hurriedly said, Thank you master. I hope you can give me the marrow cleansing pill. The master took out the marrow cleansing pill and said, although this marrow cleansing pill can improve your skills, it must be used with caution, otherwise it may go astray. Lu Xuan took the marrow cleansing pill and said gratefully, thank you master for your guidance. After they left the valley, they decided to find a safe place to take the marrow cleansing pill. In a remote cave, Xuan and others prepared to take the marrow cleansing pill. Everyone, be careful, it may be painful, Lu Xuan said. They took the marrow cleansing pill one after another, and suddenly, a powerful force surged in their bodies, and pain came like a tide. Lu Xuan gritted his teeth, and tried to use his power to resist this force. 493 R. Murong Feng couldn't help but scream. Suyeo's face was pale, but he still insisted. Zhao Chen's forehead was bulging with blue veins, and he tried his best to control the power in his body. After a period of suffering, the pain gradually eased, and they felt that their skills had improved significantly. This marrow cleansing pill is really magical, Murong Feng said excitedly. However, before they could be happy for too long, trouble came. A group of gangsters learned that they had obtained the marrow cleansing pill and wanted to rob it. Hand over the marrow cleansing pill and I will spare your life, the leader of the gangsters shouted. Lu Xuan stepped forward. Don't even think about it. Come and get it if you have the ability. The two sides launched a fierce battle. Lu Xuan and others relied on their improved skills to beat the gangsters. Let's go. Seeing that the situation was not good, the leader of the gangsters fled with his men. We can't let them run away, so as to avoid endless troubles, Zhao Chen said. Lu Xuan and others chased after them, and finally subdued all the villains. After dealing with the villains, Lu Xuan and others continued to wander in the world. One day, they passed by a village, and found that the people in the village looked haggard and worried. Lu Xuan stepped forward and asked, fellow villagers, what happened in this village? An old man said, recently, a monster appeared in the village, often harassing and robbing food and property. Lu Xuan said, don't be afraid, we will help you get rid of the monster. At night, the monster really appeared. Lu Xuan and others fought a fierce battle with the monster. The monster was extremely powerful and had thick skin and flesh. Lu Xuan used the cloud flying technique to keep looking for the monster's flaws. Look here, Zhao Chen shouted, attracting the monster's attention. Lu Xuan took the opportunity to stab the monster's vitals with a sword. The monster fell to the ground with a bang, and the owner regained his calm. The villagers were grateful to them. Lu Xuan and others continued to move forward and came to a small town. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.